The air in the restaurant was thick with the clatter of silverware and the low hum of conversation. I remember the way the candlelight flickered on my fiancé's face, illuminating the quiet joy in his eyes as he talked about our future, about the little cottage we dreamed of owning one day, about the names we tossed around for hypothetical children. The engagement ring on my finger felt heavy real. This was it, the beginning of our life, carved out of years of work, shared dreams, and a love that felt like bedrock. We were finalizing the details for the engagement party, the one my parents had insisted on hosting. A big celebration, they'd said, to announce our union, to share our happiness with everyone who mattered. It felt like a warm blanket of approval, of belonging. For someone who'd always felt a little on the periphery of my own family, a little too independent, a little too different, this party felt like a formal induction into their world, into a future where my choices were celebrated, not just tolerated. My parents, they weren't overtly cruel people. Not in the way that makes headlines. Their cruelty was quieter, more insidious. It was neglect wrapped in a thin veneer of familial obligation. It was a constant, unspoken comparison to my younger sister, Clara. Clara, who was the delicate one, the sensitive one, the one who always needed something. Clara, who floated through life expecting things to be handed to her, while I clawed my way up, built everything from scratch. They never said it, not in so many words, but their actions screamed it. Clara was the priority. Clara needed protecting. Clara needed coddling. I was the strong one. I could handle myself. I didn't need them. And needing them, just a little, just for this one moment, this celebration of my happiness, felt like a dangerous vulnerability. The party was set for the end of the month. The guest list was finalized, the caterer booked, the deposit paid on the charming, slightly rustic venue near the lake. It was everything I'd imagined, a celebration of love, surrounded by the people who mattered most. My parents had been surprisingly enthusiastic, which, in hindsight, should have been my first warning sign. Their enthusiasm for anything that centered on me, that didn't involve them solving one of Clara's perpetual crises, was usually short-lived. But this felt different. This felt like acceptance. Like maybe, just maybe, they were finally proud. I remember the phone call. It came 2 weeks before the party. A Tuesday afternoon. I was in the middle of a complex negotiation, the kind that required absolute focus, every neuron firing on all cylinders. My phone rang, and it was my mother. Her tone was breezy. Too breezy. Like she was about to announce a minor change of plans, not detonate a small emotional bomb. "Honey," she started, her voice light, about the party. My stomach dropped. The negotiation faded into the background. "Yes, Mom? Is everything okay?" "Oh, everything's fine, darling. More than fine, actually. We've had a little change of plans, that's all." A little change of plans. That phrase, delivered with such casual indifference, would echo in my mind for years. "Change of plans?" I asked, my voice tight. "What kind of change?" "Well," she chirped, oblivious to the tightening in my chest, "Clara's been under so much stress lately, with her situation. And we just felt like she really needed a break." Clara's situation was her latest failed attempt at independence, which had resulted in her moving back home, jobless and claiming existential angst. An angst, I might add, that seemed to magically disappear whenever a new opportunity for a handout or a lavish gift presented itself. "A break," I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. "What does that have to do with the party?" "That's the best part," she exclaimed, her voice rising with a sickeningly cheerful note. "We decided to take her on a little spa retreat. Just us girls. To help her de-stress. And we found the most perfect place. The Havenwood Inn and Spa. You wouldn't believe the reviews. 5 stars." My brain struggled to connect the dots. Spa retreat. Clara. My party. They weren't connecting. "Mom," I said, my voice shaking now. "What about the engagement party?" "It's in 2 weeks. Everything's booked." There was a pause. A tiny, almost imperceptible hesitation. Then, The breezy tone returned, thicker this time, like syrup coating a bitter pill.
Oh, that.
Well, that's where the change of plans comes in. See, the Havenwood Inn is rather expensive, and we want to make sure Clara has the best experience. Really let her relax. It still wasn't clicking. The cold, hard truth hadn't landed yet. So, she continued, and this is where the casual indifference curdled into something colder, something I recognized as their true nature. We've decided to reallocate the funds. The deposit on the venue wasn't fully refundable, of course, but we managed to get some back. And the catering, well, we'll just have to cancel that. It's a shame, I know, but Clara really needs this. Silence stretched between us, taut and suffocating. I wasn't just hearing the words, I was feeling them. Feeling the deliberate excision of my joy, my milestone, my moment, in favor of Clara's nebulous needs. Reallocate the funds. Cancel the catering. It wasn't a change of plans. It was a cancellation, a dismissal, a clear statement of priority.
You.
You canceled my engagement party. I finally managed to say, the words feeling alien on my tongue. Well, yes, darling, but it's for Clara. She's going through such a difficult time. Difficult time? My difficult time was happening right now on this phone call. My difficult time was realizing that even a moment as significant as my engagement was secondary to my sister's latest whim, validated and enabled by my parents. So, I said, my voice flat, drained of all emotion, you're using the money for my party to send Clara to a spa. Exactly, she chirped, missing the utter devastation in my tone. Isn't that wonderful? It's the least we can do for her. She's just so fragile. Fragile. The word felt like a deliberate jab. I wasn't fragile. I was strong. Strong enough to build a life they didn't understand. Strong enough to stand on my own 2 feet. And perhaps that was precisely the problem. My strength meant I didn't need their constant intervention, their financial support, their endless validation.
Clara did.
And needing them, needing their validation, was the currency of their love. What about the guests? I asked, thinking of the invitations already sent, the friends and family who had cleared their schedules. Oh, you can just call them, darling. It's no big deal. People will understand. Family comes first, after all. And Clara is family. And I wasn't? The unspoken question hung in the air. Was my fiancé family? Was the life we were building together, the life we wanted to celebrate, worth less than a spa weekend? I hung up the phone without another word. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. The silence in my office was deafening. The complex negotiation I'd been immersed in moments before now seemed utterly meaningless. All that mattered was the gaping wound in my chest, the cold, hard certainty that I was not, and perhaps had never been, a priority. My parents hadn't just canceled a party, they had canceled my significance. They had taken a moment meant to celebrate my happiness and twisted it into another opportunity to cater to Clara, using my canceled event as the financial vehicle. It was a double betrayal, the cancellation itself and the reason behind it. The message was loud and clear. Your life, your milestones, your joy are all secondary to your sister's comfort. The next few days were a blur of pain and disbelief. Telling my fiancé was one of the hardest things. He was angry, hurt for me, but he didn't fully grasp the depth of the wound. He hadn't grown up in their world, hadn't internalized the constant subtle put-downs, the endless favoritism. He saw a logistical problem, a cancel party. I saw a lifetime of being second best, culminating in the dismissal of one of the most important moments of my life. Calling the guests was humiliating. Explaining that my parents had canceled the engagement party felt pathetic, like admitting my own irrelevance. Some people were sympathetic, some were awkward, some were clearly bewildered. My parents, meanwhile, acted as if nothing untoward had happened. My mother sent me excited texts about booking the spa treatments at Havenwood Inn, asking if I thought Clara would prefer a deep tissue massage or a hot stone treatment. It was like they genuinely didn't understand the magnitude of what they had done, or perhaps They understood perfectly and simply didn't care. Their focus was solely on ensuring Clara's stress was alleviated, using the remnants of my canceled celebration to fund it. I tried to talk to them again, to make them understand the hurt, to explain that it wasn't just about a party, it was about feeling valued. But they were dismissive. "Oh, honey, you're overreacting," my mother said, her tone weary, as if I was the one causing the drama. "It's just a party. You'll have a wedding. This is important for Clara right now." My father simply grunted agreement in the background. There was no apology, no recognition of my feelings, nothing. Just the firm, immovable belief that they had made the right decision, the necessary decision, for Clara. The message was reinforced. My needs were trivial, Clara's were paramount. Clara herself was oblivious, or pretended to be. When I spoke to her, she was bubbling with excitement about the spa trip. "Oh my God, aren't Mom and Dad amazing?" she gushed. "I really needed this. I've been under so much pressure. The pressure of living rent-free and not having to work." Her lack of empathy, her complete failure to acknowledge that this trip came at the direct expense of my happiness, was another sting. It wasn't just my parents, it was the entire dynamic. Clara was the center of the universe, and everyone else, including me, orbited around her needs, sacrificing their own without question. This was the early struggles period, grappling with the raw pain, the humiliation, the feeling of being cast aside. Trying to find a way to salvage some joy from the situation, maybe plan a smaller gathering ourselves. But the heart had gone out of it. The intended meaning, the celebration with family, was tainted. The cancellation wasn't just a logistical inconvenience, it was a profound emotional injury. It felt like a public declaration that I wasn't worth celebrating, at least, not as much as Clara was worth coddling. The hurt began to curdle into something colder, harder. Anger, yes, but also a steely resolve. I looked at my life, at everything I had built through sheer grit and determination. My career, my financial independence, my solid relationship. These were things I had achieved without their help, often in the face of their subtle disapproval or indifference. They valued dependence. They rewarded neediness. I embodied independence, and for that I was overlooked. The deepening crisis wasn't just the immediate aftermath of the cancellation. It was the slow realization that this wasn't an anomaly. This was a pattern. A lifetime of being less important, less deserving of their time, attention, and resources. Every time I had a success, it was met with a muted response, quickly overshadowed by one of Clara's manufactured crises or minor achievements. Every time I needed support, they were conveniently preoccupied with Clara. This felt like the final, definitive proof. My engagement, a major life event, was disposable compared to a spa weekend. The emotional weight was crushing. I felt isolated, even with my fiancé's support. This was a family wound, a wound that went back to childhood. It was the feeling of being fundamentally unseen, unvalued by the people who were supposed to be your foundation. Sleep became difficult. My focus at work wavered, then sharpened into something fierce, almost desperate. If they didn't value my personal life, my happiness, perhaps they would value my success. Or perhaps success was just another thing they would dismiss, another thing that highlighted how little I needed them. But then a shift began. The anger wasn't consuming me. It was fueling me. It was a cold, hard fuel that burned away the hurt and left behind a core of pure determination. I stopped trying to make them understand. I stopped wanting their approval. The desire for reconciliation was replaced by something else entirely, a quiet, potent resolve to build my life on my terms, to a level they could never ignore and certainly could never dismiss. It was around this time that the opportunity arose. Not because I sought it out as revenge, not initially. It was a business opportunity one had been tracking tangentially through my work in real estate investment. A mid-sized hotel and spa was quietly coming onto the market. A beautiful property, slightly undervalued, with immense potential. It was the Havenwood Inn and Spa, the very place my parents were taking Clara, funded by the ghost of my canceled party. The coincidence felt significant. like the universe was handing me a tool. At first, the idea was just a flicker, a dark, satisfying fantasy. Imagine owning the place. Imagine them trying to book my hotel. But the flicker grew into a flame, then a burning certainty. This wasn't just revenge, it was a strategic move. It was leveraging my skills, my resources, my ambition, not just for personal gain, but as a quiet, undeniable declaration of independence and capability. I dove into the acquisition process with a singular focus. It was complex, demanding, requiring long hours, intense negotiations, and absolute secrecy. I didn't tell my parents, of course. I didn't tell anyone in my family. I barely told my fiancé, giving him only necessary updates about the business deal without specifying the target property initially. The acquisition became my obsession, my silent war. Every late night, every difficult phone call, every legal hurdle was fueled by the memory of that breezy phone call, the dismissal of my engagement party, the casual cruelty of it all. The process was grueling. There were moments I doubted myself, moments the financial risk felt overwhelming. The deepening crisis wasn't just emotional now, it was practical and financial. Putting everything on the line felt terrifying. What if it failed? What if I lost everything? But the alternative, remaining the person whose happiness could be so easily discarded, felt far worse. I channeled every ounce of my hurt, my anger, my ambition into this single goal. The hotel wasn't just an investment, it was a symbol of my resilience, my capability, my refusal to be defined by their limitations or their lack of love. While I was secretly navigating the intricate world of corporate acquisition, my parents were happily planning their spa getaway. My mother would occasionally mention it, detailing the treatments they were booking, the special meals they were looking forward to. Each mention was a small twist of the knife, a reminder of what had been sacrificed for this trip. But I just listened, offered bland acknowledgments, and kept my secret close. Let them plan. Let them anticipate. The higher they built their expectation, the further they would fall. The turning point arrived when the acquisition was finally, officially complete. The papers were signed. The hotel was mine. The relief was immense, but it was quickly followed by a surge of power, cold and absolute. They had booked their spa retreat for the following month. They had no idea the ownership had changed hands. They had no idea that the person they had dismissed, the person whose celebratory moment they had sacrificed, now owned the very place where they planned to relax and indulge, paid for, indirectly, by the ruins of my engagement party. The question now wasn't if I would do anything, but how. How would I ensure they faced the consequence of their actions? How would I deliver the plot twist that wasn't just karma, but a direct, undeniable result of my own actions, my own success, fueled by their betrayal? I didn't want a public scene, not really. That wasn't my style. Their humiliation didn't need an audience. It just needed to be felt, deeply and personally, by them. I instructed the new hotel manager, a discreet and highly professional individual I had brought in, about a specific upcoming reservation. I provided their names. I explained the situation in the most professional, detached way possible, that this was a family matter, a boundary that needed to be enforced. His job was simply to execute the policy I put in place. The day of their arrival at the Havenwood Inn and Spa dawned bright and clear. I wasn't there, of course. I was miles away in my office, going about my normal workday. But my phone was on my desk, silent, waiting. I knew their arrival time. I pictured them pulling up, perhaps a little early, eager to begin their pampered weekend. I pictured them walking into the elegant lobby, up to the front desk, giving their names. Then my phone rang. It was the hotel manager. His voice was calm, professional. "Ms. My last name," he said. It still felt strange to hear my name attached to the hotel. "Yes." My voice was steady, but my heart was hammering against my ribs. "They're here. Mr. and Mrs. Parent's last name." And they presented their confirmation. "I followed your instructions precisely." Silence again. I could almost hear it happening. My mother's bright, expectant tone. The manager's polite, firm response. The confusion dawning on their faces.
What?
What did they say? I asked, needing to hear it, needing to feel the moment unfold. They were very surprised, he said, a hint of professional understatement in his voice. They said there must be a mistake. They had a confirmed reservation. I explained that due to a recent change in ownership and policy, certain existing bookings made under the previous management could not be honored without a new confirmation process, which their booking did not meet. A technicality, cold and impersonal.
Perfect.
They insisted, the manager continued.
Said they'd paid.
My understanding is they had only paid a deposit, not the full amount. And the new policy requires full prepayment for their room type, which they had not completed under the new system. Another technicality. Another layer of polite, impenetrable refusal. They asked to speak to the manager, he said. That would be me. I reiterated the policy. Then they asked who the new owner was. I informed them that the Havenwood Inn and Spa is now owned by my company name. He paused, letting the weight of the name land. My company name. The name they probably barely registered, the name associated with my little job, or my hobby, or whatever dismissive term they used for the career I had built while they focused on Clara. And their reaction. I prompted, my breath held tight. They were visibly shocked, the manager said carefully. Your mother. She repeated the company name. Then she asked if you were involved. My name, uttered in that lobby, in connection with ownership. The girl whose party they canceled, now owning the place they had come to enjoy, funded by the cancellation. I confirmed that you are the principal owner, the manager stated, his voice utterly neutral. There was a moment of silence. Then your mother. She started to cry. My mother cried. Not from empathy for my canceled party, not from regret,
but from shock.
From the sudden, brutal realization that the person they had dismissed was now in a position of power over them and was using that power quietly and effectively to deny them something they felt entitled to. Your father became quite angry, the manager added, raised his voice, demanded to know how this was possible. I simply restated the policy and explained that I could not check them in. I suggested they contact their booking agent or refer to the terms and conditions of their original reservation, noting that ownership changes often trigger policy reviews. He handled it perfectly. No drama, no shouting match. Just the quiet, polite, unassailable wall of corporate policy, erected by me.
There.
Still in the lobby? I asked. No, he said. They left. Your mother was quite upset. Your father seemed
stunned.
They drove away a few minutes ago. Silence fell between us again. They had been turned away, denied entry to the spa retreat they had planned, the retreat that had come at the expense of my engagement party. They had arrived expecting pampering and relaxation, and instead, they had been met with the quiet, undeniable reality of my success and the cold consequence of their actions. This was the climax. Not a shouting match, not a dramatic confrontation in the lobby, but the quiet, devastating moment of refusal delivered by a third party where the truth landed with the force of a physical blow. They had been so sure, so entitled, so convinced that their decision was consequence-free for them, that only I would bear the cost. But the cost had come back to their doorstep, delivered by the very person they thought they could overlook. They were blindsided. Absolutely, completely blindsided. They had no idea I was pursuing this, no idea I was capable of it, no idea that the quiet girl they dismissed had built an empire while they were busy coddling Clara. The twist wasn't just that I owned the hotel, it was that I used that ownership, coldly and deliberately, to deny them the very thing they had chosen over me. It wasn't just karma, it was calculated, quiet vindication. The aftermath was strange. The immediate relief, the surge of defiant satisfaction, was potent, but it was quickly followed by a hollow ache. Seeing my mother cry, even knowing the reason, wasn't the triumphant moment I might have expected. It was a sad, pathetic display. Their tears weren't born of remorse, but of thwarted entitlement. They were crying because they didn't get what they wanted, because their assumption of privilege had been shattered by the daughter they underestimated.
They didn't call me that day.
Or the next. Or the next. The silence was profound. My sister eventually called, indignant. "How could you?" she shrieked down the phone. "They were so looking forward to this. Mom is devastated. You ruined everything." "I ruined everything?" I repeated, my voice dangerously low. "Did you even know why they booked that trip, Clara? Did you know they canceled my engagement party and used that money for your spa weekend?"
She stammered.
"Well, yes, but that was just a party." This was important for my stress. "And my stress?" I asked. "My stress, my hurt, my humiliation, when the people who were supposed to celebrate my life decided a spa day for you was more important. That stress didn't matter, did it? You were happy to take the trip, weren't you? Happy to benefit from the dismissal of my happiness." She didn't have an answer, just more indignant sputtering about how cruel I was, how I had hurt Mom and Dad. There was still no understanding, no empathy for me, just outrage that their comfortable world, built on their entitlement and my quiet suffering, had been disrupted. My parents eventually reached out, weeks later. Not with an apology, not with an acknowledgement of what they had done, but with tentative, awkward attempts to resume normal conversation, as if nothing had happened. A text asking about my dog. A brief email about a distant relative. They never mentioned the hotel. They never mentioned the canceled party. They acted as if a strange, inconvenient glitch had occurred, and now it was time to move on. But I couldn't move on, not like that. The relationship was fundamentally altered. I responded politely, minimally. I didn't seek reconciliation. I didn't demand an apology. What would be the point? They had shown me who they were, not just in canceling the party, but in their reaction to the consequence. They were incapable of seeing my perspective, of valuing my feelings over their own comfort and my sister's perceived needs. The resolution isn't a fairy tale ending where we all hug and make up. That's not real life. The resolution is quieter, more nuanced. I am married now, to the wonderful man who stood by me, confused but supportive. My career continues to thrive. The Havenwood Inn and Spa is a successful property. It's a reminder, every day, of what I am capable of and of the cost of underestimating someone. My relationship with my parents is polite, distant. We see each other at major family gatherings, where the air is thick with unspoken history. They still dote on Clara, still solve her problems, still enable her dependence. But they look at me differently now. There's a flicker of something in their eyes, respect, perhaps, or maybe wariness. They know I am not the person they can dismiss. They know I have built a life and a strength independent of them, a strength that can, if necessary, create consequences for their actions. I carry the scars of their betrayal, the knowledge that their love was conditional, their support unreliable. But I also carry the quiet pride of my resilience. I turned their dismissal into motivation, their cruelty into fuel. I didn't just survive, I thrived. And in doing so, I proved to myself, and to them, that my worth is not dependent on their validation, and my happiness is not something they can cancel. The hotel stands as a monument to that truth. A beautiful, successful monument, built on the ruins of a canceled party and the unwavering belief in my own strength. If this story hit close to home, if you've ever felt dismissed, overlooked, or had your significant moments devalued by the people who should have cherished them, tell me in the comments. I read all of them. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. It helps me bring more of these stories to life. Thanks for being here.